So, Kev, I want to thank you again for coming on here for round two. And this round is going to be a little bit different than last time because we're going to be focusing on ayahuasca and plant medicine the whole time. And I'm actually really stoked to be talking to you, and the person out there in podcast land should be stoked too, because you've got apparently so much experience in this realm. It's not like I'm talking to someone who's only been doing it, for a very short period of time. You've got a lot of experience here. So I respect that. And really my intention over the next 60 minutes is to pull out as much wisdom and information and practical guidance and advice for people who might be interested in exploring ayahuasca and plant medicines. And so I thought I'd start off with, backstories are often very, very interesting. So let's just start off with a brief kind of overview of how you got involved with either plant medicines in general or ayahuasca in particular.
Well, so with plant medicines in general, that introduction for me started back in the mid '80s. Just when I was younger, just starting to experiment around with different plant medicines that were available out there, working with different teachers, different facilitators, exploring that whole world. I didn't really find out about ayahuasca until the early 2000s. I mean, I had heard about it, but it wasn't really anything that I knew a great deal about. It held my interest, it captured my interest, and it wasn't until about 2014, I think, that I actually had the opportunity to sit in a ceremony with a shaman and experience this really profound, powerful medicine. So my first few ceremonies were really intense. To be honest, I wasn't sure that it was something that I was going to be interested in doing long term. It was pretty terrifying at times. The ordeal itself was pretty intense and overwhelming, and but it was really interesting. Every time I would drink ayahuasca, at some point during the ceremony, I would tell myself, "Okay, this is it. I'm never doing this again." Right? I'm laying on the floor face down, holding on for dear life, wondering how I got myself here, and swearing I'd never do it again. And then every time, by the end of the ceremony, it occurred to me that this might be the greatest thing I've ever encountered. I feel incredible. I've learned so much. I feel so clean and different. It's wonderful. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I would do that back and forth every single ceremony. Like, I'm never doing this again. Oh, I'm going to do this forever. And finally, I just stopped thinking about it, right? Like, at a certain point, you just got to stop playing that game with yourself.
Oh, man. Okay. So let's talk about the intense part of it. So I've heard that there's often like vomiting and or diarrhea that happens. And apparently that's part of what's referred to as purging. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it's a little counterintuitive for those of us who live in the West, and we've always looked at these things as being sick. Around ayahuasca, we refer to these things as getting well. So we are purging out the things that are the impurities that are holding us back, whether that be physical impurities, energetic impurities, spiritual, psychological, emotional, whatever these things are that are inhibiting our growth and our progress. This is what we're purging out with ayahuasca. So you learn very quickly to accept that part of the experience as a good thing, as a benefit. When we sit with ayahuasca, we ask the mother to teach us what we need to learn, clean what needs to be clean, and heal what needs to be healed. And so these come as a package. This is all part of what we sign up for when we drink ayahuasca.
It is interesting how you can put a different frame around things like vomiting and diarrhea, so you actually view it as a cleansing, as a positive thing, rather than, oh shit, I'm sick, this is wrong,
Right.
this needs to stop. um, so let me just ask you kind of bluntly, like, what's the purpose, what's the purpose of using ayahuasca in these ceremonies? Is it, I mean, obviously it's personal development, but could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, in again, in the a very basic way, it's teaching, cleaning, and healing. So for every person, it's going to be different. Some people have physical issues that they're trying to overcome, chronic illnesses, um, things that may have been plaguing them for their life. I mean, even some pretty serious physical illnesses, we can have major breakthroughs with ayahuasca. Other people, it's trauma from earlier in their life, sexual trauma, physical trauma, abuse, things like that. Things that are left unprocessed, that are negatively affecting our bodies and our spirit, and so some people will come for that. Some people, it's about seeking some kind of enlightenment, some kind of an awakening that they feel they're on the cusp of, and they just need something a little extra to get this in motion, right? So it's hard to say that there's only one reason to drink ayahuasca. Everybody will come to it for their own personal reasons, and hopefully, as facilitators, we can address whatever issue it is that's in your way and help you have those kind of breakthroughs.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you mentioned psychological trauma, which is sort of the um, healing, maybe healing negative things from the past. Then there's also psychological growth, where you're looking to kind of take maybe a part of your life to the next level, and you're looking for something to aid you in that. And then also physical ailments. So the physical ailments, I'm surprised you mentioned that. So what might be an example of a physical ailment that you've seen that's ayahuasca has actually helped? Because I thought before this conversation, it was all about psychological, only psychological benefits, I guess.
No, I mean, we see people that come in with chronic pain, that come in with stomach and digestive issues, immune system issues. Now, I've never personally experienced this, but I know people that have worked through some surprisingly complex medical situations. There's reports of cancers going into remission, people with arthritis, and all kinds of really complex medical issues that might come up. And I mean, traditionally in the jungle, this is more what ayahuasca was focused on. Like it was really about like physical healing. There's always been a spiritual and energetic component to it, but truthfully, in its earliest traditions, it was a lot about physical healing.
Right. Actually being a physical medicine you would actually take for physical.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize here, like, science has looked at this, and it's not, there's not an identifiable compound in the physical medicine of ayahuasca that they can trace back and go, oh, look, this has an effect on cancer cells and pushing them into remission. That's a lot to ask for, right? Or this is having an effect on diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. So this is where the spiritual and energetic component comes into it. The human mind is very strong. The human mind is capable of healing the body. And so there's a whole conversation to be had about the value of putting yourself through a ritual, through a ceremony, through an ordeal that convinces you that healing is possible. Right? We get a lot of voodoo from the other direction when we talk a lot of times in Western science, the thoughts that are put into our mind about our health oftentimes are reflected in our body. And usually those thoughts are pretty negative. You're sick, you need this medicine, you need this treatment, you need to come see me for this thing, right? And so from a shamanic perspective, we have to be very careful about what we say to people so that we don't have a negative influence on their healing. We try to always encourage people to accept the possibility that healing is possible.
Cool. So what comes up for me when you're talking about this is the very real, we call it placebo effect, right, in the West. And I've talked about this before on the podcast about how the placebo effect is an actual, real, measurable, physiological effect that you can see in the body. So, and whatever we use, whether it's Western medicine, Eastern, plant medicines, voodoo, whatever, there's always the potential for our own bodies to kick in and also help the process along, separate from the specific modality might be happening. So, that could be happening here too with ayahuasca. It's such a profound, what appears to be such a profound, intense experience that might really kind of kick in for a lot of people, the body's own natural healing, for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think the idea of a placebo effect is kind of a Western notion, and I think we have to be a little bit careful around that subject because, from the perspective of what we're doing with working with ayahuasca, it's intrinsically fused with energy. So even though it may not be a measurable and quantifiable thing, when we're working with the medicine, we are attuned to the way that energy is moving or not within a person's energy structure. And so we recognize that there is the possibility for energy stagnation and energy blockages within the body and within the energy body. And a lot of what's happening in an ayahuasca ceremony is about moving that energy through, right? So we look at our own personal energy, which can be blocked or stagnated. And then, of course, there's another subject that has to do with outside energetic forces. Some people will look at them as entities, having negative spirits or negative entities that are having an influence on you. And so all of these things are tied together in this healing process. And a lot of the ways that we're moving and changing these energies, or when necessary, removing energy from a person, it's done through frequency, through vibration. And that's why we use the shakapa. We sing Icaros, the medicine songs of ayahuasca, called Icaros. We use the shakapa constantly throughout the night. We use rattles throughout the night, and we're singing throughout the night. So we're constantly creating waves of frequency in the room. This is helping to curate the space that we're working in and move energy through, move blocked energy, stagnant energy, forcing negative energies or negative entities off and away from people.
This sounds absolutely amazing to me. It really does. Makes me want to try this. So how did you get trained? So you're considered a shaman, is that right?
The community that we work in considers us to be shaman. Yes.
Okay. And then how did you get trained? What was your training for this?
Well, I have had different shamanic teachers throughout my life. So I study many forms of shamanism, not just ayahuasca shamanism. In ayahuasca, there are kind of three different types of facilitators. There's what's called an ayahuasquero, which is really just somebody who knows how to prepare the medicine and serve it, and in some cases hold a ceremony. There's curanderos, who are actually able to cure illnesses and ailments and solve issues with the ayahuasca. And then there's a maestro, which is a person who has a encyclopedic knowledge of many kinds of plants. Around ayahuasca work, there's a whole other subject to talk about around working with other plant allies. So when I first started drinking ayahuasca, my wife and I started drinking together at the same time. And it's kind of a fun story if I can tell you. We had done about maybe 10 ceremonies with the same shaman. And we were getting very interested in the potential of this medicine, and asking a lot of questions, and spending a lot of time with the shaman. And he one day asked us if we would like to study the medicine with him, which I initially refused to do because I didn't feel like I had any control over what was going on in the ceremony. I just felt like I was just getting through them. I saw the commitment that he showed in his life to working with the medicine and constantly studying and practicing, and I just didn't think I had it in me. So I refused it, and he respected that. He understood it. He said, well, could you and your wife do me a favor? My wife's name is Carol. I'll start calling her Carol. Can you and Carol do me a favor and just learn a few of these icaros so that I might be able to call on you during the ceremony to sing? That will give me a chance to rest and not have to be singing all night. Because an ayahuasca ceremony is long. An ayahuasca ceremony typically lasts 5 to 7 hours. So he said, would you guys mind learning some of these icaros so I could call on you when I need a rest, when I need a break, when I'm working on somebody individually, you could pick up the slack there. Well, sure, I'm happy to do that. I can learn a couple of icaros. That sounds fun. So we did that. Then it was, can I teach you, or can I ask you to help me if somebody needs assistance with getting to the restroom, or holding their hair while they vomit into a bucket, whatever, right? Can I call on you for help? Yeah, I'm happy to help. Sure, let's do that. Then next it was, can I ask you to learn how to sopla people so that if I'm busy and somebody needs a sopla, you could go get. And it finally occurred to me, like, oh, I'm in an apprenticeship, right?
Yeah, that's so funny. The slippery slope.
Yeah, and I'm pleased that he didn't give up on us, that he recognized that there was something there that could help facilitate the work of the mother in our community, and he, in his gentle way, like, didn't give up on us, and I'm really, really honored that and blessed that that's how it unfolded, because now I can't imagine my life without it, really.
Yeah, and that's the reports that I hear from so many different people, that it's such a profoundly transformative experience. I mean, that's why you and I are talking about it right now. Question for you is, okay, so as a public service announcement, we talked about this in the last interview, so we don't need to go too in depth in it. But basically, as far as the warnings, last interview you said be very careful about traveling internationally and doing this down in South America, because there's a lot of scam artists down there. And obviously, if you do it here in the U.S., what are your recommendations as far as how to tell the difference between a guide or a shaman or a group that leads these sorts of experiences? What to watch out for so you don't get in a bad experience with someone who lacks experience, basically.
So
how to pick a guide, how to pick a company that does this. Yeah.
I mean, this takes a certain level of discernment that I don't really know how to give someone.
Right. Well, how about the basics though? How to simply avoid scam artists?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously getting a recommendation from somebody else is a good place to start. Like somebody who already has experience with a shaman, who's set with them before. That's probably the best thing that you can do. I mean, this issue exists on a spectrum. There are really bad dudes that are doing this, and there's really, really good people that are doing this, and there's everybody in between. And I always encourage people to ask a lot of questions, get into a conversation with whoever it is that's going to be facilitating your ceremony. Just try to get a sense of where they're coming from and why they're doing it. Within this spectrum that exists, there are people who do this entirely for serving communities, entirely for honoring the mother, the powerful, benevolent spirit of nature that lies behind this medicine. And then there are people that are just trying to take your money. There are people who are trying to exert control over you. They kind of weaponize the medicine in a way. They use it to have control and influence over people, and they get trapped into the idea that because they're a shaman, that they have some kind of special powers, or that they're better than other people, or more important or more valuable than other people. And this is something that it's so dangerous, and it's a warning to put out there. If someone is giving you ayahuasca and then demanding your loyalty, or that you acquiesce to them, that you defer to them in all cases, this is an important warning sign. You always want to maintain your sovereignty, and nobody is deserving of taking that from you without your agreement and permission. And we have to be careful that we don't inadvertently give someone that permission.
Yeah.
It's important for us to understand that as shaman, as facilitators of the medicine, we work for the mother. It's to facilitate her work. It's not about me. I am a technician. I am a carpenter with a bag of tools. And I've learned how to use these tools without hurting myself or someone else. And that's it. I'm not magic. I have no special powers. I'm not better than you. In our community, I have a role to play. You have a role to play. During ceremony, my role is to curate this space and protect these people, and give them the most valuable and efficacious experience that I can help facilitate. That doesn't make me better. It's nothing. I'm playing my role right now. When this ceremony is over, you have a role to play too, and now it's your turn, and I'll sit back and listen to what you have to say, and what you have to teach, and how you heal.
Well said. Very well said. Are these ceremonies, I think I've heard sometimes these ceremonies, you have multiple ceremonies on multiple days in a row, or am I getting that confused with other plant medicines?
Yeah, it's exactly right. So we usually do at least 3 nights in a row. We'll go to a retreat center. Everyone will stay on the premises, and we will we'll do 3 consecutive nights. Sometimes we will go into a longer process where we'll spend more days together and do maybe 5 ceremonies in 7 days in conjunction with a dieta or something like that. But we usually try to do at least 3 ceremonies during a retreat.
What is a dieta?
So there's 2 kinds of dietas. There's what we call the preparatory dieta. That's the diet that you observe before coming into a ceremony. So this is traditionally white food, rice, plantain, cauliflower, eggs. We take out salt, we take out spices, we take out, we basically just go into a very clean diet. No pork, very, very little meat, usually just fish or chicken. We try to take red meat out. This is to prepare the body to receive the medicine and help you process it better, make the process of purging easier. So this is the preparatory dieta. Then we also have what's called the shamanic dieta. The shamanic dieta is really important. The shamanic dieta is, in most lineages, is considered to be more important than drinking ayahuasca. And the shamanic dieta looks like this. So we will take at least 6 or 7 days. Sometimes the dieta can extend into months, right? But basically what we'll do is we will eat very, very little food, maybe a tiny little bit of rice and some fish in the morning, and then basically fasting the rest of the day. Right around sunset, the shaman will bring us a cup of tea from the bark of whatever tree it is that we're dieting, right? And this is not a psychedelic compound here. It's just herbal tea, basically brewed from the bark or some other part of a plant. We will meditate on the spirit of the tree that we are invoking, and then we'll drink the tea, ceremonially, symbolically taking the spirit of the tree into our body. And then we'll sit with the tea. We usually sing the ikro for the tree. There's a way to call the spirit of a tree into your ceremony through the ikro. And so we'll sing the ikro, we'll drink the tea. Then we just sit with the spirit of that tree for the rest of the night. And in this way, we're doing a couple of things. We're learning about the attributes of the tree. So as an example, like let's say an oak tree, roble, okay? So roble has a kind of medicine that it can offer us, and that is in its strength, stability, being well-grounded, deeply grounded, immovable, right? And so through dieta, we learn these attributes of the tree that we're dieting. Through our commitment to the dieta, we show that we're serious about having a relationship with the tree. And in that way, it's easier for us to call the spirit of that tree into our ayahuasca ceremony and ask it to augment the medicine with its medicine. So during an ayahuasca ceremony, if we need the room to be more open-hearted, for instance, then we will call in the spirit of Bobinsana and ask Bobinsana to open our hearts. So in a way, we're sort of making a concoction of medicine. We're using ayahuasca as the foundation, and then we're asking the spirit of this tree or this plant to augment that medicine and lend its attributes to our ceremony. And we learn to do this, and we gain the power and authority to do this through the process of dieting these different plants. And this is what we call the dieta.
Awesome. So we're on the topic of preparation. And so, I've heard Tim Ferriss and others talk about how important it is for integration to happen after using plant medicines. And really the idea is that if you don't do any integration, then perhaps you're having profound experiences or insights, but the likelihood that those insights will stick around and actually help you in the long term is less if you don't integrate, and it's more if you do integrate, which makes perfect sense. But I want to talk a little bit about preparation more. How important is it, and do you do any psychological preparation for people who are going through this? For example, working and developing some sort of intention, some sort of intention of what you'd like to gain or what you'd like to be open to as a result of going through this experience? Or do you not do that and you just kind of let the plant do its thing and Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, again, I think it's a personal thing. However, intention coming into ceremony is very important. Uh, Oftentimes, we will not get the exact thing that we set up for. Like, we may declare an intention, and the medicine may have something else in mind for us. But I think that setting an intention, it can be profound and powerful, and we always recommend that. Um, it's interesting with the dieta process that we just talked about, the preparatory dieta, the one that we're doing to prepare our bodies for the ceremony. This is also a type of psychological preparation, because
Right.
3 or 4 times a day, when we prepare to eat our meals, we're reminded of what it is that we're about to do. Over the years, I'm beginning to believe that that is probably the most important part of the preparatory dieta. Yeah, there's a physical component to it, but the psychological component, the part where you're reminding yourself 3 or 4 times a day that you're preparing to do this medicine, this profound medicine, I think this is maybe more what the preparatory diet is all about, right? So I think that's an important part of it. And then, of course, your mind, your mindset going into an ayahuasca ceremony is, very important. You need to have prepared yourself properly so that you know what you're there for, that you're coming in with respect, and you're coming in with reverence for the mother, reverence for this beautiful nature spirit that is behind this medicine. I've seen people get into some pretty sticky situations because they came in with a lot of ego and not nearly enough respect and reverence.
Mm. I would imagine that when that happens, the plant is uh, likely to kind of kick your ass a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
it very much is. I mean, so I go through a process. I do an interview process with everybody who attends our retreat. So I get on a phone call with you, and we talk about some of the more pragmatic issues around, like, contraindicated pharmaceuticals and even some herbal supplements, right? There's a whole list of things that we need to stay away from and that need to be cleared out of your system before going into a ceremony and drinking medicine. So we have that conversation. But then I also try to get a feel for, like, a person's level of experience with plant medicines, whether they've had ayahuasca before, or if they've worked with psilocybin or peyote or wachuma or any of these things. And in that conversation, I'm listening very closely to how they express themselves. If a person is telling me, "Oh, I've done mushrooms 100 times, and I know all there is to know about being on powerful plant medicine, and I'm the guy, and I've got this," that's the guy I'm going to watch out for in ceremony. I'm going to be, like, prepared for the medicine to humble that person.
Right. And what about integration? So, do you help participants integrate afterwards? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a super important part of it. It's we can get stuck on language. So, like, integration, it's becoming kind of one of those cliches. Like, you're just supposed to say it. You're supposed to say integration, 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 right? For me, what integration means is putting the medicine to work, right? Drinking ayahuasca is not about ayahuasca ceremonies. I mean, that's the sensational part. That's where the fireworks can happen. That's where the profound experiences begin. But the real work around ayahuasca is putting it to work in your daily life, taking what you've learned in ceremony, taking your personal medicine and sharing it with the people around you, right? Practicing what you preach. When the medicine says, look at this way that you are, look at this way of being, are you ready to shed this old way of being and come into this new way of conducting yourself, and this new way of being in your life, right? And are we willing then to go into our everyday life and put that into action, put that to work? Because that is worthy of differentiation. Are you just coming to ceremony and doing that, or are you actually putting it to work in your life? This is important. This is really important.
Yeah, I would say it's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's a type of spiritual bypass that happens, right? Like you think that you're the guy because you've done 75 ayahuasca ceremonies, when in truth, all you've done is 75 ayahuasca ceremonies. Nothing about your life has changed. You're not sharing your personal medicine with your community. You're not making the lives of other people around you any better, right? You just got a good social media post. Yeah, I did another ayahuasca ceremony. I'm so cool. Kind of a waste.
Yeah, I would say it definitely is a waste. So what's one way that your own life, if you wouldn't mind sharing, has like what's a change that you've seen in how you conduct your own life as a result, you think, of your experience with ayahuasca? It doesn't have to be super profound, but just anything.
Um, so the easy answer to that is just my state of being and how that is shared in the world, right? Like how I treat other people, how I treat myself, really. And but this stems from something that's a little more profound. And ayahuasca has taught me that there is an invisible world. There is a spirit world. There are energies and unseen spirits around us at all times. Some of them are irrelevant. They don't really have an effect on us. They're just part of the ecosystem. They're around, big deal. Others can have a range of negative influences on us, and others can have extremely positive influences on us, right? And so when you learn to accept that about your world, then everything starts to change. When you see that the spirits of nature are available to you as an ally to support you in your times of weaknesses, in your time of need, when you need to communicate well with other people, when you need to handle a situation, when you need to navigate stress or anxiety, that you can call on these spirits of nature to come to you and give you their support and their medicine, lend you their attributes. Becomes a very powerful tool, and it changes the way that we conduct our lives in almost every way.
And so what would that look like for you if you're calling upon spirits in nature to help you in a certain situation or to rely on their attributes? I mean, do you say a prayer? Do you think something in your mind, or what do you do?
Yes. So this is especially true of the specific plants that we have dieted, right? So let me use Bobinsana as an example. So Bobinsana is a heart opener. So if you and I are having a conversation and I start to sense conflict happening in that conversation, in my mind, I will ask the spirit of Bobinsana. Did we just lock up there? Oh, I locked up. I don't know if you did. In my mind, I will ask the spirit of Bobinsana to lend me her medicine and open my heart so that I am more open to what it is that you're saying. I have more compassion. This is why it's important for us to form these relationships with these different plants. And I may ask that medicine, that particular tree, that particular plant, to also give you their medicine so that we can have a more open-hearted conversation and understand each other and love each other and have compassion for each other as we enter into a stressful situation.
Sounds awesome. And also, I don't want to overlook what you just said a little while ago, which was something that I've heard so many people talk about, Aubrey Marcus and Tim Ferriss and everybody. It's this experience of the spirit world and entities out there, which for a lot of people sounds so far out there, right? And yet, to me, it also seems like even if that idea seems out there to someone out there in podcast land, I would argue that if we have this life to live, that it would make sense to at least have this experience for yourself or a similar experience to actually see what people are talking about. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that everybody go out there and do this, but in my mind, and even, Sam Harris has talked about this in his work as well. He's like, I've got, a teenage or pre-teenage daughter, and I think it would be a waste of her life never ever to do any psychedelics.
Yeah.
It's a profoundly human experience that we all have the potential to have. And so it just makes sense that we should all, have it, essentially.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially when we talk about plant medicine, right? Like, realize the profound nature of the bridge that's being built here. Plants communicate with each other chemically, and they have figured out how to communicate with us, and it's chemically. Right? Like, that's the method that they use to communicate. So when we're working with a plant medicine, we're experiencing the chemical message too. And when that chemical bridge allows us to tap into the consciousness, the spirit, the animating force of a plant, we're experiencing a miracle. I mean, the plants are they have it going on this planet. Without the plants, none of this exists. We have no atmosphere. We have no oxygen. We use them for food. We use them for clothing. We use them to provide our housing, right? Like, really, on this planet, the plants are in control, right? And here they are teaching us things. They're helping us live healthier lives. They're cleaning us. They're giving us these profound messages that help us to experience our own spirituality and appreciate the value of our own existence and what we can contribute. Like, we're really experiencing a miracle there. So why would we make that unavailable to people? It strikes me as odd.
I wonder if that's one reason why a lot of people feel so connected to God or the spirit world when they're out in nature, because that's just it's a way for us to connect with this whole realm that we depend on.
Right. Really? And it's a big force. It's a big force, much bigger than us as individuals, right? So when we tap into that, this is the God sensation that a lot of people experience with plant medicine.
Okay, let's get practical here for a second. So getting back to the intense physical sensations during the ceremony. So out of 10 people who go through the ceremony, most likely, is it 10 out of 10 are going to experience vomiting at some point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're lucky, right? Like, you get that cleaning.
Right.
Let's hope that,
yeah.
that 10 out of 10. It doesn't happen every time. And the truth is, the more that you work with the medicine and the cleaner you get physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, the less purging that you do. But don't ever think that you've got it licked. Don't ever think that, I'm done purging. I haven't purged in 10 ceremonies. I'm done, right? You'll purge.
and out of 10 folks, how many should expect to have diarrhea at some point?
It's not nearly as common. It depends a lot on the person's body, and it's never happened to me, but it's fairly common. There's many different ways to purge, so it's easy to think about purging as just vomiting or diarrhea, but sweating, sighing, like you hear a lot of sighing going on in ceremony, right? Like, just releasing that energy, letting it out. Shaking is very common. I used to shake a lot during ceremony, just deep-seated energetic things that were very burrowed into my system, and the medicine would just shake you and shake you and shake you, and just shaking that stuff loose, and then you purge or whatever. Laughing, crying, many different ways to purge. Sweating, belching, all those lovely things.
Right. Is there a less intense plant medicine involving ceremony as well that you recommend people doing before doing ayahuasca? Or if someone's like, shit, ayahuasca sounds awesome, also sounds very intense, not sure if I'm ready for that. Is there like a baby step with a different plant medicine that's available, or is that really just not something you recommend?
It's kind of irrelevant, right? Like ayahuasca is so different. Each of these master plant teachers has their own medicine to offer. So whether we're talking about psilocybin, we might be talking about wachuma, the San Pedro cactus, peyote, like cannabis. They all have a different teaching and a different message for us. And I don't think I wouldn't say that there's something to do as a middle step to like work your way up to ayahuasca. I've poured medicine for people that have never experienced an altered state of consciousness. They've never even had alcohol or cannabis or nothing, right? And it's fine for them. In a lot of ways, I think that might even be better. Like I said, those people with a lot of experience with plant medicine can sometimes come in with a lot of ego.
Right. That makes sense. Let me read to you something that I think Wade Davis said, or I've read about him. So he says, we live in a culture, and maybe this is wrong, but I'll just read to you my notes. Okay. We live in a culture of the self. The purpose is to pursue one's own personal spiritual path. But with ayahuasca, it's basically taken as a communal experience, taking it as a prayer for the community. Do you agree with this? Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Thank goodness for Wade Davis. I'm so glad that you read that, Kevin, because this is something that's been on my mind a lot. It's a part of ayahuasca that I don't think we talk about enough, right? In an ayahuasca ceremony, the idea is to have your own experience. You're not supposed to get involved with the experience of your neighbor. You've got somebody laying right next to you. They're going through their own thing. They're purging. They're doing their process over there, and you're not supposed to get involved with it. It's supposed to be an individual experience. Stay in your own experience. However, I'm beginning to understand more and more that ayahuasca is also medicine for the community. So we'll tease this apart a little bit. Think about this. It's an ancient practice. It's been used for thousands and thousands of years. In ancient indigenous cultures, it was very important that they do things on a regular basis that bind the community together, right? Because the community means everything. It's strength, it's protection, it's security, it's sustenance, and so a lot of the ritual and a lot of the ceremony in their lives was based on bringing the community together. With ayahuasca, you are having this deeply personal experience. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that it is happening in a public setting, you are with other members of your community. You're creating this space and sharing this space to do deeply personal healing, deep personal transformation. But you are doing it in public. You are doing it with members of your community. And this is what's binding the community together. And we can see this process manifesting now all over the world. The medicine, ayahuasca is a vine. And true to its nature, it is spreading around the globe. This is why I said earlier that I don't think it's really necessary for people to go all the way to South America to drink ayahuasca. If you want to, you can, but it's not your only option, right? Ayahuasca is coming to you, so be good with that. But here's what's happening, in my view, right? And I don't hear anybody talking about this. ayahuasca is creating ecosystems and then causing community to form that can thrive within those ecosystems, right? And so rather than it being looked at as like one thing that is expanding around the world, I see the medicine as creating little pods. It's like, oh, I'm going to create a little ecosystem over here, and I'm going to bring these people together, and I'm going to bind this community together, and I'm going to facilitate the thriving of that community within that little ecosystem. And this provides us with excellent opportunities to try out other communities. Like I never require people who sit in ceremony with us to be loyal to us, to only drink medicine with us. That would be foolish, right? Like there are other communities out there, and you need to find the one that you fit into, right? Like I don't own you. You have sovereignty. You can go do whatever you want. So find a shaman, find a community that serves you well, that resonates with you, and then immerse yourself into that community. Help in the process of bonding that community together by doing this deeply personal work in this public communal setting.
Awesome. Sounds profound. And so how do people find these communities? Do you just Google ayahuasca retreats perhaps and search around?
There's all kinds of places that can give you recommendations for different ayahuasca circles that are happening. There's a lot of established retreat centers in South America that you can work through, or just again, it's kind of word of mouth, because here's something that's worth differentiating. Within our organization, Vida Brillante, we serve in a very traditional way. Like we don't advertise, we don't market, we don't put stuff out on social media, we're not promoting, we're not trying to build a business model around medicine work, right? We serve the community that organically grows around us, and we support that community in every way that we can as we do our service. Other places, it's a business model. And I'm not putting a judgment on that. That's between that person and the medicine as to how they use it. But there are definitely people out there who are trying to build business empires. Most of them end up not being that successful. They usually will have some situation that brings them down. But they're out there, and some of them do fine work. You know, I don't have a problem with people profiting off of serving medicine, but again, it's going to be up to the individual about where they feel best. Like, is that kind of an environment good with them? I mean, they're getting the work done. They're working with the mother. If they're getting healing and it feels effective and good for them, that's good. You need to just be where you need to be. But it exists on a spectrum. There's everybody from very, very traditional to very much like, here's my contemporary business model, how I'm going to become a millionaire by pouring ayahuasca.
Right. And the circles that you lead, are they typically then 3 days of ceremonies in a row, or a day or two on either end, or what does that look like?
Yeah, typically we're there together for 4 days, and there's 3 ceremonies. Yeah. We will occasionally do what's called services, which are one-night ceremonies, but those are reserved for what we call stable members of the community. So these are people that have sat in many ceremonies with us, and what we're trying to do is give them an opportunity to quickly reconnect to the mother, have a night of medicine work, do a night of ceremony, just one night. Like, there's a lot of benefit in that for people that are more experienced and more stable with the medicine. For new people, it's pretty much always required that you start out with a 3-night retreat.
Awesome. Well, Kev, thanks so much for your time. And if someone wants to learn more, where should they go?
If they want to talk to me about it, they can contact me through vidabrillante.org. The email is shine@vidabrillante, VIDABRILLANTE.org. vidabrillante.org.
Okay, and that is .org, because I know yesterday I was looking up your website and I put .com, and that's not you, so it's .org at the end.
That's .org.
Yeah. All right, Kev, thanks so much. Very deep conversation, has got me very interested and very curious about this world. Thanks for doing what you're doing. And again, I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate the conversation. I wonder if you would like me to end our time together with an ikoro for the people.
That'd be fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that opportunity. Let's, since we've been talking about bobinsana, beautiful heart-opening plant, let's call the spirit of bobinsana. Bobinsana sitaini. Bobinsana sitaini. Altoy mundai tongai sito bundai mundai gogo chito borsi tongi olaro so rija reba via pura medicina. Claro desveado mundo enterito. Rija reba via pura medicina. Limpia cuerpocito, limpia shongo ni setoini. Limpia sentirito, limpia shongoinito. Poderosa medicina, poderoso icaroene. Poderosa medicina, poderoso icaroene. Bola ringe, bola monge, todo malo fisione, todo cruzamiento, se una guatiera subterráneo aire cunaini. Nunca pudiendo dominarse duene ningún espíritu malo cunain. Todo rebota, protegido pura medicina de resbelongue duene todo malo cunain. Hare runde nai. Cubre cuerpocito, pura medicina. Cuida mongue sin ningunas aflicciones. Halarimo, pura medicina. Halarimo, pura medicina. Yonai, bobinsana sitaini. Nayonai, bobinsana sitaini, legitimo doctorcito poderoso icaroene, legitimo maestrocito poderoso icaroene, fresco icaroene, mesacito punayare, cuerpocito punayare sin ningunas aflicciones, halarimo, pura lucetoini. Halarimo, pura medicina. Hare runde nai. Hare runde nai. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Kev. Take care, buddy.
Thank you. Take care.